Tales from the wild. Stories from the heart. A journey into the mind and soul of fired-up business professionals where they share their vision for the future. And hear from a different non-profit organization every month as they create awareness of their goals and their needs. Dive into a world of untamed passion as we join our host, Shireen Buerta, for this month's episode of Friends from Wild Places.
All right, welcome. Shireen here. I am your virtual boutique bookkeeper and QuickBooks advisor. As a Marvel fan, my favorite superhero is Iron Man. And just as Iron Man uses advanced technology and clever tactics to defeat his enemies, SBS, Shireen's bookkeeping services, uses advanced software and financial expertise to help clients stay organized and make smart financial decisions. Iron Man represents innovation, ingenuity, and precision, all qualities that are essential for successful bookkeeping. Plus, Tony Stark's charisma and reputation as a leader align with the trust and confidence that clients place in us to manage their finances effectively. Call Shireen's bookkeeping services today and experience the difference. If you want to know more, go check me out at www.shireensbookkeeping.com and allow me to keep your books clean so you don't have to. Welcome back. You are listening to Friends from Wild Places with myself, Shireen, and my beautiful co-host, Tanya. How are you feeling today, Tanya? We haven't spoken in a while. What's happening?
Yes, doing great. So right outside of Miami, Florida, weather is beautiful, just another glorious day and another day to, kind of shine the light. So I'm happy to be here. Absolutely. And this morning we have with us, I know we're in different time zones here as Shireen is in South Africa. And this morning we're honored and privileged to have as our guest, Felipe Wright. Felipe, It's your birthday today. So yes, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for having me, both of you. Thank you, Shireen and Tanya. Thanks so much for having me this morning on my birthday. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. So Felipe Wright is President and CEO of eWaste Tech Holdings, Inc. So Mr. Wright serves as the company's President and Chief Executive Officer and the Chief Visionary of the venture. He served 21 years as an Army Administrative Specialist and Human Resources Management non-commissioned officer. After his military service, though, Felipe formed an information technology company called Intelligent Information Technology Systems, IITS. As CEO and president of IITS, he worked with federal and local government agencies and private sector companies delivering IT services and facility support solutions. eWaste Tech Holdings, Inc. is a startup venture with a mission to create groundbreaking electronic waste solutions that transform waste, people, and community while implementing the triple bottom line social and environmental principles: planet, people, and profit. He does believe in the solution addressing the rapidly growing waste problem. So happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
And happy birthday again.
Thank you so much, Shireen. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Over to you, Sonia.
Okay, so first of all, Felipe, thank you for the service to our country as a veteran military. I'm just super excited to dive deeper into your story. And I just want to open up with, sometimes we can appear a certain way, but people don't know who we are, where we came from, right? So shed us a little bit of, deeper dive into Felipe as far as who is Felipe, where did Felipe come from, and some of the things that are like, people don't even know who we are and they're judging us, right? So go ahead.
Well, listen, thanks for having me this morning, Shireen and Tanya. And I'm glad to have this opportunity on this podcast to really have a conversation about my story, but ways that we can empower each other. So my background, I'm from a small town from Virginia, New King County, Virginia. When I left there, the population was only 5,000 people. I come from an entrepreneur family. My grandfather was a third grader that owned a logging company. and he was one of the best men of my life. My father owned one of the first service station businesses in the state of Virginia. And at a time during in the 60s, for a minority to have a service station business or being in the industry was quite challenging for him. And my mother was class president and class salutatorian in our high school. So I always said already in life, I've been afforded those opportunities that I saw entrepreneurship. I saw the great parts of it. I saw the challenges associated with entrepreneurship. And also during my high school years, I'm a stellar athlete. I was all-state football player in the state of Virginia. I did something very unique in 1980. The Lake Placid torch came to our hometown, the Olympic torch. And I was able to carry that Olympic torch for 2 miles. It was one of the greatest moments of my life because what it shared with me was that people are watching me, they want to reward me, and I got a chance to say, okay, you know what? There's greatness in front of me. So that's where my beginning started. And then I went to college. Then I joined the military and had an illustrious career in 21 years of service from all different type of commands, from serving in Europe, the Middle East, South America, and all those places allowed me to shape my journey where I am today. As you stated in my bio and my background, Shireen, I had ran information management. I was working for many general officers and senior selective executives for the federal government. So all those opportunities in the macro and micro level allowed me to say, you know what, this is an opportunity that I can continue to grow and be better for myself. So throughout my life story, it's just been those kind of opportunities that has shaped my journey in becoming the person I am today, and also the mission I'm here to fulfill.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing, Felipe.
Yeah. So I know, Felipe, you had a quote that you brought to us, and I want to tell the listeners about it. So the quote goes, "The choices we make will dictate
the life that we live."
Let me repeat that again for the listeners. The choices we make will dictate the life we live. And I did do a Google search on it. Shakespeare was the originator of that. But Felipe, please just tell us a little bit of what it means to you and why you use that quote so often in life.
Thanks for the opportunity to explain. We all have made choices that we have some regrets behind. We all made some choices that sustain us through our life journey. And I'm a father of 2 children, which I love. My kids are, one is a nurse, a registered nurse, and one is a pastor in pastoral leadership, master's. So I always share with them, and I'm the oldest of 7 kids, of my siblings. But I always know that all the choices I made will dictate my life, and also they're going to watch me in every step I make. So all the choices that we do make, from the standpoint as leaders, from the standpoint as subordinates, we just have to make sure we make sound choices, and those choices will allow us our future, our pathway to success, or our pathway to failure. But it's really the choices we do make that will allow us to overcome all situations. And we'll talk about that later on about in entrepreneurship, how you can make good choices or bad choices, or the lack of information. But again, it's all about the choices we do make. And, again, I'll be the first one to tell you, and I spoke about this at my father's funeral, but I was able to get a chance to close the loop for my parents. And they'll tell you they weren't perfect people, but they also tell us that they gave us the foundation, and through their choices, we're able to propel, and all of us have done pretty well in our life overall. So it's all about choices. For
Felipe, I love the way you kind of analyze that. Let me get that word out. Analyze from the standpoint that, even when we read each other's bios, right? It's like, it's kind of like the cream of the cream, right? It's like all these accolades and all these wonderful things, and people all over, whether people are in entertainment or sports or whatever realm they're in, everything gets kind of like, highlighted, which is great, because we do, honor the successes. But when you look at like, the pyramid, like Maslow's hierarchy, you can see that the successes are here, right? But then we got all this other stuff going on, right? All these like, trials and tribulations to get us to where we are. But when we are on stage or when someone's introducing us, it's like, they're not introducing our failures and all the times we fell down, And I love, when you hear the quotes about, like whether it's, Michael Jordan or the Beatles, like, how many times were people turned down, Walt Disney was turned down because he wasn't creative, and everyone has their story. So today we're really here to really dive deep into Felipe's story and really just kind of get a sense of who you are and what brought you to where you are.
Yeah, Tanya, I think you capsulized it in a nice way, because at the end of the day is this: we all have real stories, if you're honest. We all have real journeys, if you're honest. And I found that, if an entrepreneur come in the room, or anybody said, listen, my life is perfect. Well, clearly I don't need to be in the room with you, because I can't learn anything, because your life is perfect. I want to learn about your struggles. I want to learn how to get to that little point you mentioned at the top, that because like, just take on 409. They failed 408 times. That's why they call the solution 409. So you just got to know people's journey. Southwest, their whole model was to focus in the Southwest region of Texas, in that region. But there was someone that bailed them out. They had a bad day, like most businesses will. And someone bailed them out, and now they are, they're nationally known in our flight space in the United States. So again, but all the Microsofts, the Apples, if Steve Jobs was here, he'll tell you his own stories, his own setbacks, So again, we just need one person to believe in us through those different encounters. Just kind of give you a little bit of my background. Also, I officiate high school football in the United States, in an area of the DMV, which we call the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, in the Northern Virginia area. And I've been a high school football official. This is my 27th season. 27 years. And when you get a chance to capture and look at NFL football on Sundays, there are folks I officiate in the league, as the Stephon Diggs and the Chase Youngs and the Vernon Jordans. We can go on and on and on. But I have a front row seat, not just to make the right call. I have a front row seat of making sure those young gentlemen and those coaches put out the best product to make sure those kids have the right opportunity, because one call could derail their whole opportunity, especially when folks come from humble beginnings, like myself. All those things I may have, but I come from very humble beginnings. They need that one opportunity to change their life. So this humble beginnings. So being a part of that, that's why I take, going back to my quote, the choices we make dictate the life that we live. We have to be so impactful in everything we do. And Tanya knows there are 4 words I've used at the beginning of this year, and we'll go into our segment more, but be intentional and be impactful. With everything you do in life, be intentional and be impactful. So that will carry the rest of our journey. So again, thank you.
100%. Yes, no. And along that quote that you love, it's definitely along the lines of Friends from Wild Places. I mean, one of the very first episodes that we recorded was Everyone Has Their Own Journey. Do you remember that, Tanya? And so we've preached on that so often. And, I'm just going to pop in with the previous guest that we had.
Sure.
Last week, who was Brian, who actually is an entrepreneur and speaker today, but was a priest. And so he has
Roman Catholic priest.
Roman Catholic.
Wow. Okay.
And he has a story. And so
can only imagine.
We all have stories, and we get to where we are today through every choice that we've made, good and bad. And I know I've said it multiple times. Tanya's heard me say it. I would not be here today if I didn't go through the things that I had to go through, good and bad. So
Absolutely.
My next question to you, Philippe, would be what is e-waste and why is it so important to get rid of?
Thank you for the question. Electronic waste, by definition, is the proper disposal of electronic waste and everything that has a plug. That is electronic waste. Most folks that understand a little bit of electronic waste, they understand the technology aspect of electronic waste. Cell phones, computers, TVs. Because you know why? Because they can get more return of revenue in the industry. But when I looked at this e-waste industry, I've been looking at this problem since over 30-some years during my military career. Because how we handle electronic waste at that time, which we still do today, is nothing, and this is in the 1980s. I'm dating myself, of course. Everybody know I'm 61 today. So after we did our IT upgrades, could be in the server room or could be your old computers at your desktop, we put all the electronic waste and put them in warehouses. And back then, most of them probably end up in landfills. So in our legislation, Shireen and Tanya, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA for short, put out a set of guidelines in 2007, no electronic waste can go into landfills. So in my first company, as you stated, I did information technology and facility support. And I did some construction services under that facility support banner, which allowed me to create jobs in low and affordable communities. So my whole commitment, because I come from humble beginnings, I know hard work, you know, as smart as we all are on this call, but the hard work outbeats anyone. You can, if you have that part of your ethics, hard work will get you past a lot of things in life, and you keep you on pushing. So you never have that no quit attitude. So I saw e-waste as an opportunity, not just to deal with the environmental impact or issues. I saw it as an opportunity to do a few things. One, to protect our environment. Two, to create jobs in marginalized communities or rural communities. And three, empower our communities. So these folks that get these jobs, they can receive livable wages, not minimum wages, livable wages, and have a part of the American fabric. And we'll take this whole model internationally. So I saw e-waste as an opportunity to change lives. So when you talk about the triple effect, to me, the profit is important because without profit, you cannot continue to carry your message through. But what's more important to me is really about empowering people. This is work beyond the walls of the church for me. This is my gospel work. So my spiritual foundation allows me to not be fearful anymore. But the work of e-waste, that's the definition. So e-waste is the proper disposal of electronic waste, where anything that has a plug, to make sure all the data, the information security is removed. So when you have you're doing your tax returns, everything you file on a hard drive or your disk, that's where you want to make sure all that data information is destroyed by your standards by each country. But in our country, we use NSA and DOD, which stands for Department of Defense and National Security Agency standards.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a lot, Philippe. I gotta like break that down just so I can understand it a little bit.
Sure.
So let me just take it like from like an individual household. So if somebody has like an old hard drive, okay, or an old cell phone like that, you know, Apple or Verizon doesn't want, where are you supposed to put that, and how are you supposed to dispose of it, if that's the proper word?
Oh, very good question, and that's the proper terminology. What we're trying to do in our model, what you should be able to do is go to your local municipality waste area to take your electronic waste to get it properly disposed of. Now, most municipalities do not have a data destruction strategy in their model. So what we have done, because of my background in the military, I ran a NATO top secret SCIF, so which stands for Sensitive Classification Industrial Facility. Those where documents was housed. I took all of my security background to ensure that the data component of it was the most important thing that we address. The waste is important because of the hazardous material that will go into landfills and your waterways. But if your data is not properly destroyed and you got identity theft, that will happen for years on end. You can hardly get rid of it, and your life is upside down. You can't buy a house, You can't purchase cars. All your purchasing power is taken away from you. So that's why, to me, the data destruction component is very, very important. But to even more so, I would like to add more piece to it, Tanya and Shireen. That's why our model, we're going to make sure everything we develop, it makes it convenient for the consumer as the folks in households. So we'll make the model local for all different communities. Believe it or not, 90% of e-waste is sitting in households that has value. The average pounds is 62 pounds of e-waste sitting in everyone's household. That's the average. So just think about that. So not only is this a challenge, because people don't know what to do with it, that's almost pretty, for that defense, that's pretty wise. So for them to keep it until they find the proper way to dispose of it.
And you know what? I'm probably right in smack in the money as far as like the exact what I have in my own apartment is probably exactly what, and you just don't know where to do. You don't know what to do. So I think from what I'm hearing, Felipe, it's almost like you are wanting to bridge the gap from the local household to the structure of the company and kind of bridge the gap about helping people know, like regular household people, what to do with their e-waste.
Listen, Tanya, very well stated. And I call the educational piece as a threat. Because what you just don't know, you just don't know. But if you know better, you'll do better. So what we're going to do is make sure we talk about the environmental threat. We talk about the information security threat. And also the areas I'm in is creating the jobs, right? So we're going to deal with that and make sure we standardize and make sure the right kind of facilities are deployed in the communities that you live in, besides the population. And also part of it all is education. Once we truly educate the consumer how to dispose of electronic waste, they will participate. I've learned it already in my pilot program. So to your point, Tanya, you are absolutely correct. It's just, to me, it's about education. It's not we call it a threat, but I think if you just don't know something that's really part of your society every day, that can become a threat. But my model, you can do good addressing that threat. Because what we want to do, we'll take those materials, turn into valuable waste, turn that waste into valuable materials, and then we make sure we deal with not only our OEMs, our original electronic manufacturers, they can use it, but for our weapon systems in the United States and our allies to use, which is called rare earth elements. There are 17 rare earth elements that are composed, that are part of any kind of waste or weapon systems. So those metals will allow us to share to and also help our national security apparatus and also help our community. So our model plays a greater role other than just the education, this proper disposal, and also making sure it's environmentally safe.
So I have a question. So your business model, does it start small and go big, or are you targeting the top and going down for the community?
Great question. I think the model is scalable to do both. So I won't go so much where the deployment is happening, but I will go back to model where it's happening. The model is that you will start small from a stand up a facility that can house that large waste. Then what we'll do is deploy smaller facilities in those communities that need the waste, that have the population. So I look at the large facility as an enterprise facility, and we look at the smaller facilities as a consumer facilities. So we make it local. So that's really the model and everything in between.
Tune in next week for part 2 from Friends from Wild Places.
You've been listening to Friends from Wild Places with Shireen Bueta. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast from the links to catch every episode and unleash your passion.